At E3 2016, CD Projekt Red showed off a brief glimpse of an upcoming story mode for Gwent. The tease promised an isometric, story-driven experience with a branching narrative and disputes that were settled with a round of Gwent. It sounded promising, but after E3 the team went quiet. In late 2017, CD Projekt Red finally released a proper teaser for what we now know as Thronebreaker, a standalone Gwent experience that follows not Geralt, but Queen Meve. We spoke to CD Projekt Red about the game recently to understand more about the Witcher spin-off.
It was decided quite early on that we will want to have a single-player content for Gwent because this is our background. We know how to tell stories, so we wanted to use this opportunity to tell a story for a different game in a different gameplay context. And so two people were assigned to sit down and start thinking about this. The first one was Mateusz Tomaszkiewicz, who was the lead quest designer for The Witcher 3. And then I was the writer for the project. But initially, when we pitched that idea, we were told to prepare a proof of concept. So obviously we took Geralt because he's the character who we are familiar with. But it very quickly became clear to us that Geralt cannot be the lead character in a story like this because Geralt travels alone. And here you lead a huge army and you're supposed to, put time and effort into expanding it and building your camp and whatnot. So Geralt was not the right character here.
With Geralt out, CD Projekt Red needed to find a character that meshed with Gwent and the game's mechanics. Seeing as you'll be commanding an army in the form of cards, it made sense to put a queen at the center of the story.
Bow low for your sovereign, Her Majesty, Queen Meve of Lyria and Rivia.
So we knew that we want to start off with the northern kingdoms, so to tell the story through that particular faction, because I think it's the most familiar for most players. And we're looking for the right character to lead. And Queen Meve is this intriguing character that's mentioned in the books. All her passages are probably 2 pages when you put them together, so it's not very long. All the moments where she pops up in the story really are very memorable. So we had these key moments. We knew that she lost her kingdom, that she started a guerrilla warfare, that she met Geralt at some point, and that she prevailed in this battle of the bridge. And we knew that these are all elements that we have to include, and basically we had to fill in the gaps in between these key moments. So we knew that she was this key character. We only knew little about what had happened, so we thought that this would be a great character to start with and to take what we know and fill in the details.
Playing as a queen is very different than a Witcher. This proved to be a challenge for the writers, but it allowed them to flex their creative muscles in a different way. The decisions you come across and the characters you meet are very different than the situations Geralt would find himself in.
The Duke of Dogs fed you, so you've strength enough to carry arms. And as he gave you coin, you've no need of pay from the realm's coffers. Sergeant, all men of 15 summers or more will join our ranks at once. They'll serve 5 years.
Geralt is an outsider. He doesn't belong in the greater society. He's not respected by people. They need his services, but they don't like him, and they want him to leave as soon as he's done. And he almost always travels alone, and he only opens up to his friends and so on. And Meve is very different because she's, the queen of Lyria and Rivia, so she's respected and people bow when they see her. She has a massive retinue of advisors and officers and family that she has to interact with, and she has to think a lot about how people perceive her. So Geralt, doesn't have to care about that. He doesn't give a damn what people think about him. But Meve knows that the way she talks and looks is important to how she's perceived and how her kingdoms are perceived. So there's this complexity, this political aspect of it that we didn't have to deal with when we were writing dialogues for Geralt. And also, since Meve is the queen, whenever she becomes impatient with someone, he can just order her soldiers to take someone and whip him and basically push him off a cliff or something.
Your excuses I cannot accept,
said the queen.
The vipers who called for the slaughter, they will hang.
So we tempt the player to use that option. So whenever someone accuses you that you are doing something that's wrong or doesn't agree with you, well, you have the option of just saying, whip this guy, or this is, Les Majesté, just take him away. And whether you use that opportunity or not really defines your version of Meve, whether she, how open she is to criticism and so on. And like language-wise, we also knew that we had to write dialogues a little bit differently because Geralt doesn't care about the etiquette, he doesn't care about formalities, and even when he interacts with monarchs, he's quite informal. But with me, we knew that she has to sound different. So when she's talking to people in like official context, she's very formal. But when she talks to her friends in the canteen, she becomes this more honest, more open person. So she has these faces that she either puts on or takes off. So overall, it was a very interesting experience for me as a writer to come up with different ways in which to portray this character.
With the new character also came a new part of the world. Over the course of your 20 to 30 hour adventure, you will explore 5 different maps.
There are 5 maps, and each of them shows a different region of the Witcher universe. So you start out in Lyria and Rivia, but then you make your way through the northern realms. So you move on to Aedirn, which is really ravaged by wars, and it's this very dark and depressing landscape. And then you move to Mahakam, so it's the realm of dwarves that our longtime fans were dying to see and to experience, and we are finally showing like how we imagine it. And then is the mysterious and foggy swamps of Angren, and finally you return to Rivia. It's fantastic to be able to go to these locations also. Because I don't think we would have to. I don't think we'd be able to show this much diversity in a 3D, fully 3D AAA game like The Witcher 3. Because crafting locations in a game like that takes a lot of production, values. And with a 2D isometric game, basically you can be more symbolic and you don't have to show everything literally. So this allows you much more freedom in how you create these worlds. So I'm really happy that we got to do that, and I was dying to write about Mahakam and present players how I imagined that. So when we decided we are actually showing Mahakam, knowing how important it is to our longtime fans, I spent months designing this part of the Witcher world. So I would go through the books and find all the relevant information, and then I would read about like what mining looked like in the Middle Ages and how we could use that knowledge to represent Mahakam. So we had these 60 pages long design document outlining how it should work out. We also know that the dwarves of Mahakam really isolated themselves from the rest of the world, and they really didn't want outsiders coming in. So we imagined a society which is very closed, and it has its own customs and values and traditions that are not necessarily easily understandable or relatable to outsiders. And I think we've created a really interesting part of the Witcher world, and I can't wait for players to see that and experience that firsthand.
Thronebreaker comes to PC on October 23rd and Xbox One and PS4 in December. Although many fans might have their gaze fixed on Cyberpunk 2077, Thronebreaker is shaping up to be a deep RPG that will give fans another opportunity to explore the rich world of The Witcher.